Hi everyone, tonight we're going to take you somewhere dark, cold, and crawling back to a time when just being alive was a gamble. You're not a knight, you're not a king, you're not even a merchant. You're a nobody in a nameless medieval town, and something terrible is about to arrive on a boat, cling to a rat, and jump right onto you. You're going to live through the plague, but barely. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where you're all tuning in from. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started on tonight's journey together. You open your eyes to the sound of wooden wheels clunking on cobblestones. It's dawn, the air is smoky from the baker's oven, and the town smells wrong. Not like bread or animals, but something sharper like iron and rot. You don't know it yet, but the death toll of your generation is already sailing across the Mediterranean in the belly of a Genoese ship. You step outside your home, ducking under the low wooden beam of the door, and hear it scratching. Not loud, but constant. Rats. Dozens of them. They're everywhere by the stables under market carts, crawling along rafters like they own the place. You nudge one with your boot and it barely flinches. Bold little demons. Your neighbor old Marjorie spits over her shoulder. Rotten with vermin we are, she mutters. Bad omen. Bad omen doesn't even begin to cover it. By the time the first plague ship docks in Sicily, the Black Death is already on the move. Fleas ride the rats ride the ships ride the wind. And in just weeks, all three will arrive in your harbor, and the fleas, they'll want someone new to bite. You scratch your neck absently. Little do you know that one itch could be your countdown timer. You spend your morning selling fish at the market. It's not glamorous, and neither are you. Your hands are cracked, your clothes stink of salt, and your fingers are still numb from sleeping in a room where windows are just holes in the wall stuffed with straw. But you're lucky in your own way. You're working. You're alive. And you have a herring that might not even be rotten yet. But something's wrong. People from the docks look pale. One of the bakers collapses and doesn't get back up. The town physician says it's a summer fever, but it's late autumn. Odd fact of the night, medieval people believed bad smells caused disease. Miasma, they called it. So your neighbors start carrying flowers in their hoods and burn rosemary in the streets, hoping to ward off sickness with nice scents. Spoiler, it doesn't work. But it sure smells festive. Historians still debate whether the plague arrived by sea in your region or overland via trade routes, but it doesn't matter to you. All you know is that a man dropped dead on your fish. Right on it, mid-haggle. The crowd screamed. Someone fainted, and the constable came by his face wrapped in a rag to tell you to get rid of the body. You, not him. Because as he puts it, you're already dirty. Thanks, Gerard, real helpful. You haul the man's body off your stall, trying not to breathe through your nose. His neck is covered in blackish boils, his lips are cracked and blue. You think he was alive yesterday. You think he bought eel. That night you lie in bed staring at the beams above you. The rats are back. One scampers across your chest like you're just another piece of furniture. You shove it off and pull the blanket tight. You tell yourself it's just bad luck. Maybe it's just a fever. But the next morning, Marjorie is gone. So is the boy who sweeps the inn. And the priest won't open the church doors anymore, just shouts sermons from the tower like a medieval podcast nobody subscribed to. The plague has come, it doesn't knock, it doesn't ask, it just shows up and you're already in its path. And you know what the worst part is? You'll survive. You wake up to an itch, just a little one, behind your left ear. You scratch it without thinking, just dry skin, right? but then it burns. It's warm. And when you touch it again, there's a bump. You don't know it yet, but that bump could be your death. Welcome to medieval healthcare, where you either die fast or die confused. You shuffle over to the communal basin to splash water on your face. The bucket smells like turnips, and the water inside has things growing in it. You rinse anyway, because what else are you going to do? It's not like the medieval world offers filtered showers and a cup of herbal tea. Your body aches, your back is sore, and your armpits smell like they're plotting against you. The town is quieter than yesterday, the market is barely open, and the fishmonger next to your stall, Bertram, is missing. His stall's still there, though, and so is a cat chewing on what might be his hand. You turn back around. The itch behind your ear is spreading. Now your neck feels tight. You walk with your shoulders hunched like you're afraid of being struck by lightning or worse, another tax. A traveling friar says prayers under his breath as he walks past. You don't think much of it until you notice he's walking on the far side of the street and avoiding eye contact. You're marked now. Maybe not officially, but in the eyes of the town you've got that look. Weird fact, people thought plague boils were caused by bad humors, and the solution was sometimes to burst them open with hot irons or onions. Yes, onions, because why not ruin soup and your lymph nodes at the same time? You feel the fever kick in by midday. Your knees are wobbly. Your hands shake as you try to lift a basket of fish. A woman notices and drags her child away from your stall like you just tried to sell him actual Satan. You sit down, you sweat through your tunic, you wonder, is this it? Someone offers you plague vinegar, a medieval cure made by soaking herbs in wine or urine, depending on how much people liked you. You pass. Barely. Historians still debate whether the bubonic plague was always the cause of these early outbreaks. Some symptoms didn't quite match the textbook, less coughing, more rashes. But you don't have the luxury of parsing diseases. You just know that every hour you're not dead feels like a surprise. By evening you're hallucinating. You see your grandmother's ghost, or maybe just a very pale Marjorie carrying a goat. Hard to say. Your bedding is soaked in sweat. You've lost your appetite, and that's saying something considering you once ate snail pie during Lent. Someone knocks on your door. You don't answer. It could be a priest or a doctor or a body collector. You don't want to find out. You curl up in a corner instead, trembling like a leaf, whispering the only prayer you remember. Please not me, please not me. The bump behind your ear. It's the size of a walnut now. Black, shiny, and angry-looking. You prod it once. Mistake. It shoots pain through your skull like someone hammered a nail into your brain. And still somehow you don't die. By midnight you're gasping for air. Your breathing comes in shallow bursts. Your tongue feels like it's made of wood. You try to sit up, but your body won't let you. So you just lie there staring at the ceiling, wondering if you'll wake up in the morning or not at all. The funny part, you do wake up. Barely. You crawl out of your bed on hands and knees. The fever broke. You're soaked, pale, and starving. You open the door to your hut. The street is empty. A cart rolls by piled with bodies. A man shouts, "Bring out your dead." And you think about raising your hand, but you don't, because somehow you're still alive. Not healthy, not whole, but alive. And that might be the worst part. Everyone you know might be gone, and that little itch behind your ear, it made sure of it. The town square used to be noisy. Kids ran through it, goats clomped across it, and merchants bickered over the price of stale bread. But now it's so quiet you can hear the flies buzzing around the well. The fear has settled in like fog, thick, low, and clinging to everything. You shuffle down the road with a blanket draped over your shoulders. It's not yours. You think it belonged to Bertram. You don't remember if you took it before or after you found him slumped behind his stall. Doesn't matter now, he's dead and you're cold. Every person you pass avoids you. They don't say hello. They don't meet your eyes. A woman clutches her rosary so tightly the beads snap. A young boy points at you and whispers, "That's one of them," before being yanked away by his mother like you're contagious, which you were. Probably still are. Who knows? Panic is the new normal. It spreads faster than the plague ever could. The mayor's assistant stands on a barrel near the church steps, reading off a list of names. 57 dead yesterday, he announces. 72 today. Then he pulls out a scroll and starts naming streets. Entire streets. Shut, quarantined, boarded up by order of his lordship. You hear someone sob. You remember when the town crier used to announce marriages or feasts? Now he just counts bodies. Weird fact. In some towns, panic spread so badly that people refused to speak above a whisper, believing sound could carry disease. So the entire place went quiet, not just from death, but from fear of words. You stop by the bakery. It's empty. A single loaf sits on the counter, half-eaten. No sign of the baker, just a note scrawled in charcoal, "Gone to the woods. Don't follow." People are leaving, running, hiding. And you think about it too. Could you make it outside the walls? Start again somewhere else? But then you remember what happened to the last guy who tried. They dragged him back through the gates, half-starved, muttering nonsense, and with bite marks on his arms. He didn't survive the night. Historians still debate how much the public actually understood about contagion. They didn't know about bacteria or fleas, but they knew something passed from person to person. They just didn't know how. So they blamed everything, the stars, the Jews, the bad air, even sin itself. And when you don't know what to blame, you blame each other. Your neighbor's door has been marked with a red cross. 2 kids inside. Their mother's gone. You hear them crying through the boards nailed across the frame. You walk past quickly. If you stop, you might listen too long. You might feel something. And right now, feelings are dangerous. At home, you bar your own door, not because you're sick, though honestly you're not sure anymore, but because people are getting desperate. Food's running out. Trust is gone. And once the bread's gone, the knives come out. You hear a fight down the street, a scream, then silence. You don't check. You drink water from a bucket and chew on stale oats. You find mold growing on the wall and just stare at it for a while. It's growing, thriving even. Must be nice. In the distance, the church bell rings. Once for death, twice for a priest, 3 times for confession. But tonight it rings 4 times. You've never heard that before. No one has. It's probably nothing good. Then a whisper, they're closing the gates. You step outside and listen. Someone shouting orders. Guards clanking around with torches. You can barely make out their words, but you hear enough. Seal the walls. No one in, no one out. Your town just became a prison. You could leave. Try to sneak out. But you'd risk being clubbed on sight. Or worse, being left outside the walls with no supplies and a cart full of corpses. You sit in the alley by your house watching the rats dart through the shadows. They're bold now, fearless. They own the town. You used to curse them. Now they're the only things moving freely. You pick at a splinter in your finger and realize your hands are trembling again. Maybe it's the fever, maybe it's the fear, or maybe it's that terrible question gnawing at your brain. What if this is as good as it gets? What if this half-dead, half-alive, door-bolted nightmare is your future? Not a season, not a plague year, just life now. You hear them before you see them. Slow, steady footsteps, metal-tipped cane tapping on cobblestone, leather boots that don't scuff, they glide. Then the shape appears through the alley haze, long dark cloak, wide-brimmed hat, and most disturbing of all, that face, or rather that mask. A long beak, eyes like black marbles. A plague doctor has arrived. You freeze. Everyone does. He walks like a shadow from a nightmare. The beak curves outward like a crow's skull stuffed with dried herbs meant to filter bad air. Juniper rose petals, maybe a dash of mint if you're lucky. It smells weirdly fresh, which is deeply unsettling when surrounded by death. He's not a healer. Not really. He's more like a medieval coroner crossed with a therapist no one asked for. He prods sick people with the stick records names in a little book and makes sure no one tries to pretend their dead grandma is just sleeping. He stops near the butcher's house, taps on the door once with the cane. No answer. Then he opens it anyway. 2 minutes later, he steps back out and draws a red X on the door in ash. And that's that. Your friend Roger whispers, "They say if he visits, you've already died." Then Roger coughs so hard he nearly chokes. You take a casual step away, just in case. Odd fact of the night, the plague doctor outfit wasn't just for drama. It was actually based on a mix of science and superstition. The beak was an attempt at an early gas mask. The cloak was waxed to resist miasma. The stick, well, that was just so he didn't have to touch anyone. Understandable. He spots you staring. You try to look normal, whatever that means. But it's too late. He starts walking toward you. Your mouth goes dry. You haven't even sneezed today, but suddenly you feel like your entire face is a symptom. He stops a few feet away and speaks in a low, muffled voice. "Any recent deaths in this home?" You shake your head too fast, too eager. "No fever." "Not anymore," you say, realizing too late that you've admitted to having had one. He stares. Or at least you think he does. Hard to tell through the beetle-eye goggles. Then he nods once, scribbles something in his book, and moves on. You don't breathe again until he's turned the corner. Historians still debate how effective these doctors were. Some think they helped track the spread of the plague. Others argue they were little more than bureaucratic grim reapers. Either way, you'd rather not see one again. You head back inside, sit in silence, poke at the fire, poke at your bandage. Try not to imagine the doctor knocking again. Later that night, you hear a knock on a neighbor's door. Same slow rhythm. Then shouting. A crash. More shouting. Someone wails, then the clanging of a lock being hammered into place. Another house sealed. You look out your window at the street. There are 6 red marks now, maybe more. You suddenly realize you've been holding your breath for hours, like if you inhale too deeply, you'll pull death into your lungs. The next morning, the doctor's gone. But his scent lingers, the burnt cloves and vinegar tang of false hope. You try to go back to routine. Boil water, sweep the floor, pretend like sweeping matters when the world is unraveling. Then you find a bird dead on your doorstep. It's been sliced open, guts exposed. You look around, no one in sight. Was it a warning? A curse, a message. In times like these, symbolism gets weird fast. You bury the bird and burn your hands in the process. People start talking about you. You hear them mutter as you pass. He lived, they whisper. He walked right past the doctor. He never coughed once this week, like you're some kind of sign of hope or doom. You're not sure which is worse. The plague doctor doesn't come back for a while, but the damage lingers. Every time you hear footsteps, your body tenses. Every time you see a shadow move, your brain says, "That's it. It's him. Again." You try to sleep, but your dreams are full of tapping canes, beaked masks, and endless pages of names being written down, yours included. And when you wake up, it's no comfort to know you're still alive, because now people are looking at you like you're not supposed to be. There's smoke in the air again, but it's not from the baker's oven this time. You follow the scent toward the town center and stop in your tracks. A bonfire is raging, not the cozy kind where people gather with stories and soup. This one's surrounded by a crowd, and at the heart of the flames, cats. Dozens of them. Dead, tied together in bundles tossed into the fire like trash. Someone cheers. You want to throw up? A man with a wooden cross around his neck shouts, "The devil travels on the back of beasts. Burn them," and burn his trail. The crowd roars in agreement. You step back. They're killing cats because they think it will stop the plague. You know those rats? The ones crawling over everything, chewing into food stores, walking across sleeping children. Guess what's been keeping their numbers in check all this time? Yep, cats. And now the rats are free to party. Weird fact. In many parts of medieval Europe, the Pope himself declared black cats as agents of Satan, which in hindsight didn't exactly help the rat problem. Medieval logic, kill what you fear. Think later. You spot a teenage boy quietly rescuing a tabby kitten from behind a barrel. You nod at him. He nods back. It's the closest thing to hope you've seen all week. But the cats aren't the only ones being burned. By midday, the crowd has moved to the synagogue. You try not to watch. You try to keep walking. But curiosity wins like it always does. You stop by a corner and peer around it. What you see makes your stomach sink. They're accusing the Jewish townsfolk of poisoning the wells. A man in a blue tunic is screaming something about punishment from God. The mob grabs torches. Rocks fly. Doors are broken. Inside, people scream. You think of Leah, the baker's assistant. She once gave you free honeycomb on your birthday. Now her house is burning and you don't know if she got out. Historians still debate how much anti-Semitism was baked into plague hysteria versus opportunistic scapegoating. But one thing's clear: when people panic, they don't look for facts. They look for someone to blame. Your town is no exception. You back away before someone sees you watching. Mob energy is unpredictable. You don't want to be the next target. Back home, the streets are filled with ash and whispers. Did you hear about the apothecary curse, they say? The widow 3 doors down hasn't stopped bleeding from her nose. My cousin saw a man with boils the size of apples burst like fruit. You try to plug your ears. That night someone knocks at your door. You freeze. Another knock, slower this time. You open it just a crack. It's the teenage boy from earlier, the one with the kitten. He holds it out to you wrapped in cloth. "Too loud at my house," he says. "Can you keep her?" You hesitate, then nod. She sleeps on your lap that night, warm and still purring. You don't remember the last time you felt something alive cling to you without fear. You name her Cinders. In the morning, you hear more shouting outside. Another round of arrests. More houses boarded up. Someone's painted a huge W on the side of the baker's shop. You ask what it means. "Which?" a woman whispers. You stop asking questions. Oddly enough, people are starting to eye you differently now. Survivors are rare, and suspicion doesn't need a reason. You hear someone mutter that you've been seen with cats. Another swears they saw you speak to the plague doctor and not die. That can only mean one thing, right? Witchcraft. You're not sure what scares you more, dying of the plague or surviving it. That evening, as the sun bleeds across the rooftops, you look down at your hands. You still smell of smoke. Your fingernails are black with soot. You think of Leah, of the cats, of the people yelling, burning, screaming. You wonder when the real plague started, when the fleas bit, or when your neighbors stopped being human. You don't remember agreeing to dig graves, but somehow here you are, shovel in hand, dirt under your nails, and a smell in your nose that no amount of incense will ever scrub out. It started with a knock. Not a sinister one, just tired. A man in a leather apron stood there, eyes sunken and boots already crusted with mud. "You're alive," he said. "Good enough." Then he tossed you a shovel and walked away. Now you're at the edge of town in the field behind the chapel where the ground has stopped pretending to be sacred and just surrendered to death. You dig and dig and dig. The sun doesn't rise, it just gets less dark. Your hands blister, your back screams, but the bodies don't stop. One wagon rolls up, then another, then another. No names, no goodbyes. Just linen-wrapped figures tossed like sacks of barley into trenches. Sometimes you catch a glimpse of a face before the cloth slips. Eyes open, mouths frozen mid-sentence. One of them looks like your uncle. You don't check. Weird fact during the Black Death, so many people died so fast that traditional burials collapsed. Priests couldn't keep up with last rites. Graveyards overflowed. In London, they buried people 50 deep. 50. You're handed a mask. Not a doctor's beak, but a rough cloth soaked in vinegar. It makes you cough more than it helps. You wear it anyway. Someone beside you mutters a prayer as they lower a child into the pit. You look away. Not because you're cold, but because if you watch everybody go in, you'll start naming them. And once you name them, you break. By mid-afternoon, your body moves on autopilot. Shovel down, shovel up, toss, wipe brow, repeat. You eat bread that tastes like clay. Drink water that smells like smoke, then go back to it. A priest arrives and blesses the ground by tossing a handful of ash over the trench. It doesn't feel sacred. It feels like routine. Historians still debate whether the mass graves were organized efforts by local councils or just pure chaos. Some records show lists. Others show none. Your town. It stopped counting days ago. By evening, the grave is full. You stand at its edge, looking down at a pile of cloth bundles, each one a person, a life, a voice, maybe someone you knew, probably someone else did. A man beside you lights a torch and hurls it into the trench. The flame catches fast, so fast you wonder what else was buried with the bodies. Wood oil desperation. You step back. The fire roars. Burning graves weren't standard practice, but when the fear gets strong enough, people stop caring about tradition. They just want it gone, all of it, all of... That night you wash your hands in a bucket and watch the dirt turn red. You don't speak. No one does. What is there to say? You think of Cinders, the little kitten curled up on your bed. You envy her. She doesn't know what any of this means. To her you're warm, alive, still purring. You lie down next to her. She climbs onto your chest and settles in. Your hands still shake from the shovel. Outside the wind carries ash and prayers. And somewhere in your bones you wonder how many more graves you'll dig before someone digs yours. There's a knock at your door. But this one isn't from the plague doctor or a man with a shovel. It's from the constable, and this time he's not alone. 2 others are with him, armed with nails, planks, and expressions like stone. "You're in quarantine," he says flatly. "Orders." You try to protest. "I'm not sick." He raises a hand like that alone is enough to silence argument. "Survivor," he mutters, as if that's a suspicious category now. "We can't take chances. You're locked in before you can pack a bag or even grab extra bread." The wooden planks slam across your door. Hammered in, thick nails, one by one. Boom, boom, boom. And then silence. You're sealed in your own home. Not just you cinders, two huddled in the corner, ears twitching at the noise. You press your head against the door, no light, no crack, you're not getting out. This is what quarantine looks like in the 14th century. No notices, no supplies, no end date, just boards across the door and hope you don't starve before you heal or rot. Weird fact, in Venice ships were held offshore for 40 giorni, 40 days. That's where we get the word quarantine. But on land in towns like yours, there wasn't time for math. It was lock the door and pray. You count your food. 3 pieces of dried meat, a wedge of old cheese, half a loaf of bread that smells questionable, 1 jug of water, 1 confused kitten. You ration, not for weeks, for days. You pace. 8 steps across the room. Turn. 8 steps back. The boards groan when the wind blows. Dust drifts in rays of sunlight like tiny ghosts. By the 3rd day, your stomach is turned in on itself. You sip water like it's wine. Cinders meows constantly, then stops, then meows again. The quiet in between is worse. You hear footsteps outside. You rush to the window, but it's been nailed shut. Only a sliver of light gets in, barely enough to tell day from night. You lose track of both. On the 5th day, someone screams in the house next door. A long, hoarse scream, then banging, then silence. You close your eyes and pretend it's thunder. On the 7th, your food is gone. Your water is half a cup. Your head feels like it's filled with wool. You consider breaking the boards, just for a moment, just to breathe fresh air. But you remember the stories. People who tried were beaten. Some vanished. No one asks where. Cinders curls into your chest. You wonder if she'll outlive you. Honestly, you hope so. Historians still debate how many people died because of quarantine, not from disease, but from hunger, isolation, neglect. But there's little doubt being locked inside with no help was often a slower death than the plague itself. By the 9th day, you hallucinate. You see your father dead these 10 years sitting by the hearth. He doesn't speak, just watches. You talk to him anyway. By the 11th, you stop sweating. That scares you more than the fever. Then on the 12th day, light. You wake up to creaking, boards being pulled free, a shaft of sunlight cutting across your face like a sword. You blink, flinch. The constable stands there, arms crossed, a cloth tied around his mouth. Still alive, he mutters, almost disappointed. You stagger out the door, legs numb, face gaunt. The world is blinding. You breathe in air that smells like mud and fire. It's glorious. No one claps, no one greets you. You're free, but freedom tastes like ash. The neighbors stare from behind curtains. Children peek from corners. Someone whispers, "That's him." You hear the word untouchable. You walk back inside. Cinders follows, the light fades. And you realize something. The plague didn't just kill people, it killed trust. And you've been left alive, inside a town that no longer sees you as one of them. You decide to leave. You don't say goodbye. Who would listen? You pack what little you have. A piece of cloth to wrap, stale bread, a knife with a cracked handle, your last bit of clean water, and cinders swaddled in a pouch across your chest. You don't take much because you can't, because you don't know where you're going, just away. The town gate isn't guarded anymore. Not really. The sentries died or fled weeks ago. The heavy wooden doors hang half open, sagging on their hinges like drunkards too tired to care who comes or goes. You slip through at dawn when the world is still quiet and damp. Your boots crunch on frosted leaves. Behind you the town watches with 100 empty windows. None wave, none stop you. You're a ghost walking out of a graveyard. The road bends through the woods, and for the first time in what feels like years, you hear birds, real birds, singing, like they don't know or don't care what's happening in the world of humans. You try to feel something like hope. It doesn't stick. By midday, you come across another village, smaller than yours. A few stone cottages, smoke rising from chimneys, a fenced garden with goats munching weeds. You approach slowly, hands raised. Cinders meows. You whisper, "Shh." A man with a pitchfork appears. You stop. He doesn't shout, doesn't threaten, just watches you like you're a bear he might have to fight. His face is sunburned, his eyes tired but alert, like he's seen this exact moment play out 10 times already. "I'm not sick," you call out. "That's what they all say," he replies. "I had it months ago. I lived." He lowers the pitchfork, but only slightly. "Then you're worse." You blink. "What?" You bring it with you, maybe in your clothes, in your breath, in your shadow. He gestures with the fork. "Keep walking." You want to argue, scream, drop to your knees and beg. But something in his voice tells you that won't help. So you walk and walk. For 3 more days you wander. Forests, farmlands, empty houses. In one hamlet you find a table still set for dinner dust on the spoons. A dog barks inside but doesn't come out. You don't open the door. You sleep under trees. You drink from streams. You eat crusts so hard they chip your teeth. Cinders clings to you like a little furnace. You stop naming the days. They don't deserve names anymore. Then one night you arrive at a large manor house, abandoned. Vines growing up the walls, but intact. You circle it. No signs of life, no bodies either, just quiet. You decide to risk it. Inside, the air is dry and cool. There's furniture, firewood, even a pantry with pickled things you can't quite identify. But you eat them anyway. You stay for days. And for a moment, just a brief flicker, you pretend this is your home, that you were always meant to be here, that you're not running or hiding or surviving but living. Weird fact, some plague survivors did take over abandoned estates. With entire families wiped out, homes and farms were left to rot. And those with nothing suddenly found themselves landowners. But land doesn't cure grief. On the 6th day, someone finds you. A woman thin as a fence post with a bow in her hand and 3 arrows notched in a bundle on her back. She doesn't ask who you are, just says, "If you're going to stay, you'll work." You nod. And so you chop wood, patch fences, mend shutters, watch for strangers. She never asks your name. You never ask hers. You both know why. Because in times like this, names are things you give to people you're willing to lose. Historians still debate whether those who fled to the countryside fared better than those who stayed in cities. You're living proof that the answer isn't simple. You didn't die, but that doesn't mean you've been spared. You've just been delayed. And every morning when you look out over the misty fields, you wonder, how far do you have to run before the plague stops following? You wake up one morning to a dull ache in your jaw. Nothing dramatic, just a pulsing throb that won't go away. You touch the side of your neck and your heart sinks. A lump, not huge, not yet, but it's there. And you know exactly what it means. You want to scream. You want to cry. Instead, you stare at the wall and whisper, "Not again." You'd survived once. You thought that made you safe, untouchable. Maybe even blessed if you squinted hard enough at the word. But the truth is this: the plague doesn't care about you. About your little victories, about kittens, arrows, fresh air, or old prayers. It's back. Only this time it's different. Faster. You're burning up within hours. Your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth. Your vision blurs. When you try to stand, your legs give out like a tower of wet parchment. The woman, your quiet, not quite companion, drags you to a cot and dumps cold water on your head. That's the extent of medical care out here. Cinders curls at your feet, unsure of what's happening, but purring anyway. You drift in and out of sleep, or fever dreams, or death, hard to tell the difference. You see things. Red rivers, eyeless priests, a girl dancing with a bundle of rats tied to her belt like trophies. Your own mother pointing at you from a foggy hillside, saying, "Again, really?" Weird fact. The plague came in 3 major forms: bubonic boils, pneumonic lungs, and septicemic blood. Historians still debate which form was deadliest or whether one outbreak could shift forms entirely. Some survivors reported death within hours. Others lingered. And a lucky few like you last time crawled out the other side. But this doesn't feel like luck. By the 2nd day, you're coughing blood, not red, black. You wonder if this time it's the septicemic variety poison in your veins spreading so fast your organs can't keep up. The woman leaves food by your bed. You never touch it. She never speaks. You realize she's already planning what to do with your body. On the 3rd day, the fever breaks. Just breaks. No fanfare. No trumpet from the clouds. You wake up, drenched, heart pounding, but alive. You sit up, slowly, every joint screaming like rusted hinges. You're not sure if you should celebrate or cry. Outside, the woman is sharpening a blade. She glances up, sees you wobbling toward the doorway, and says, "Well, look at that." You want to say something smart. Maybe death got bored. But your throat is sandpaper. You just nod. Cinders follows you out. The sun is too bright. The grass too loud. Everything feels like it might vanish if you blink too hard. The woman tosses you a flask. You drink. It's mead, strong enough to knock over a monk. It tastes like staying alive. She squints at you and says, "Didn't think you'd crawl back." You rasp, "Neither did I." She shrugs, still ugly. You laugh. It hurts. But it's the first real laugh you've had since before. You're not sure what that means anymore. Later, as you both watch the sky turn purple behind the hills, you say, "I thought you'd burn the house down." She replies, "Still might." And you both laugh, together, like people who remember what laughter was. Historians say the 2nd or 3rd bouts of plague were sometimes deadlier. But some survivors built up resistance, natural immunity, they think. You don't know what spared you. But you do know this: you're now something terrifying, a repeat survivor, which in this world might as well make you a myth. It starts with the sound of drums, low, steady, distant. At first you think it's a dream, or maybe your own heartbeat trying to climb out of your chest. But no, you hear it again, drums and footsteps, a lot of footsteps. You and the woman, her name's still a mystery, by the way, climb the slope above the manor to get a better view. The trees part just enough for you to see them. Dozens of them, marching barefoot, shirtless some of them, whipping themselves with leather cords soaked in blood and something darker, chanting in Latin, or what sounds like Latin. Could be gibberish, too. Plague doesn't exactly make people more accurate. The Flagellants have come to town. They pass your gate in a perfect line, each one bleeding, each one shouting about the sins of man, the wrath of God, and the need to suffer more so others might suffer less. Weird fact, flagellant movements swept across Europe during plague outbreaks, especially in the 14th century. They believed if they punished themselves enough, God might spare the rest of the population. Some towns welcomed them, others not so much. You and the woman crouch in the brush, silent. She mutters, "Idiots." You nod, but quietly. You've seen what mobs become. And these men, they're not here to help. They're here to purge. As they march past, a boy, maybe 13, breaks off from the line. He runs up to your gate, slaps a red cloth onto it, then scurries back. You wait until they disappear over the next hill before you check what it says, in shaky script marked for cleansing. You stare at it. The woman rips it down and spits. "Try it," she mutters under her breath, as if daring the sky itself. You don't sleep that night, neither does she. By morning, the drums return. You don't see them yet, but the rhythm is closer. Thump, thump, whip crack, chant. They've circled back. You and the woman pack quickly. Whatever fits in a sack, food, water, flint. Your knife, cinders, who hisses at the drum beat, and a coil of rope that feels more important than it should. "She says we can't run forever," you reply, "but we can start again, one more time." You slip out through the woods, sticking to shadows. You don't speak. You barely breathe. Once you hear voices nearby, Flagellants reciting psalms in broken rhythm, bleeding into the dirt with every step. You keep walking. By dusk, you're miles away. Camped under an old willow, you eat bread hard enough to kill a rat. You pretend it's soup. Cinders curls into your coat like she doesn't care what town you're in as long as you're warm. Historians still debate how much influence the Flagellants had. Some saw them as heroes, others as dangerous zealots. Some even claim their gatherings helped spread the plague faster. You don't know who's right. You just know they put a mark on your door and didn't care whether you were sick or not. That night, as fireflies flicker around your camp, and the woman sharpens a knife against stone, you ask her quietly, "Do you think they believe what they're doing?" She doesn't look up. No? Then she pauses. "Worse, I think some of them do." You fall asleep to the sound of crickets and the distant echo of drums fading into the hills like a warning. You're no longer running from disease. Now you're running from the living. The church doors are wide open, but no one dares step inside. You stand at the edge of the square, eyes fixed on the darkened interior. The altar's barely visible in the gloom. A single candle flickers on the far end, melting into a crust of wax that might have been lit days ago, or weeks. Once the church was the heart of your town. Bells rang every morning. Mass was a given. People wept, confessed, begged. But now it's just stone silence and shadows. You and the woman return to your old town cautiously. Supplies, she says, tools, maybe even seeds if anything is left untouched. You didn't expect to find the church unlocked, but it is. And it's not just unlocked, it's empty. Not in the no one's home sense. Empty like it's been abandoned by belief. The priest is gone, his quarters ransacked, robes missing. The last psalm scrawled across the pages of a waterlogged hymnal in a trembling, half-mad hand. You flip through it. At the end of the book, a final message. "We prayed, no one listened, forgive us or don't." You sit in the front pew. Not to pray. You're not sure what prayer would even sound like anymore. But because your legs ache and the space is quiet and the air smells like dust instead of rot. Weird fact, many priests abandoned their posts during the plague. Others stayed and died in droves. The church tried to keep order, but their promises of divine protection rang hollow once bishops started dropping like flies. Historians still debate whether the plague truly broke the church's hold on Europe or just cracked it. You know what it felt like, betrayal. The woman explores the back rooms. She finds a small satchel of dried figs, a bottle of sacramental wine, questionable age, and a holy relic that's probably just a bone. She holds it up. "You want a saint's thumb?" You raise an eyebrow. "Didn't think so." Outside, you hear someone shouting. You both freeze. A crowd is gathered, thin, ragged, angry. 10 people, maybe 12. They're arguing in front of the church. You catch phrases through the broken glass. He lived, he's marked. Why else would he be alive? It takes a moment before you realize they're talking about you. The woman grabs your sleeve. We need to go, now. You duck out the back through the chapel garden, dodging stone angels with crumbling noses. You run. Cinders clings to your coat like a burr. You reach the alley behind the blacksmith's old shop. Hide in the coal bin. Wait. The crowd passes shouting nonsense about signs and omens and the one who speaks with death. You hear something else, something darker. They say he lived twice. You stare at your hands. You're not magic. You're not immune. You're just unlucky in a lucky way. And in this world, luck looks suspicious. After the voices fade, you and the woman leave the town for good. No more scavenging, no more going back. The people aren't sick anymore, they're worse. They're hungry for someone to blame. You sleep that night in the ruins of a barn. It smells like damp straw and regret. Cinders curls up in your satchel, purring softly, the only creature in the world who doesn't flinch at your presence. The woman speaks into the dark. Used to be people wanted miracles. You nod. Now they want monsters. You nod again. And you don't tell her which one you feel like. The smell hits you first. Worse than any trench, worse than any stable or tannery. It rolls down the alley like fog, thick, heavy, and alive. You've smelled death before, but this is concentrated. And then you see it. A cart. Wooden rotting, groaning beneath the weight of corpses. No linen wrappings this time. Just bodies. Stacked like logs. Arms dangling. Mouths open. Eyes gone glassy or sunken. Some are purple, others green. All of them smell like the end of the world. You step back instinctively, but the man pulling the cart sees you. You help. You freeze. He doesn't ask again. He just drops the front of the cart with a grunt and wipes sweat from his brow. I can't push it alone. Too many. You want to say no. Run. Disappear. But he's already walking around to the other side, assuming your answer is yes. So you step forward, you grab the handle, and together you move the cart of the dead through the town square, past shuttered homes and broken windows, past children who stare from doorways with hollow expressions. No one offers help. No one says thank you. No one makes eye contact. You ask, where are we taking them? He jerks his thumb. Northfield, pits open. That's all he says for a while. Then they didn't pay. You glance at him. Pay? For removal. Plague fee, 2 coins. And if they can't pay, he snorts. They still go. But we say they were witches. You don't ask if he's serious. Weird fact. Some towns did charge fees to remove corpses. If families couldn't pay their dead, were tossed into communal pits, sometimes labeled as unclaimed, sometimes worse. When bureaucracy meets death, humanity tends to lose. When you reach the field, the pit is already swarming with flies and birds. A few brave dogs slink around the edges. The cart is tipped. The bodies slide in. You don't breathe through your nose. The man hands you a cloth. Cover your mouth. Take this too. He offers a tiny pouch. What is it? Lavender, rosemary. Keeps the spirits off. You pocket it anyway. Not because you believe, but because everyone else does, and you've seen what they do to people who don't follow the rules. Historians still debate whether mass plague pits were effective or just hasty. Some argue the quick disposal slowed transmission. Others say it made things worse. Either way, you're not here to argue. You're here to throw another body in the hole. You return to town in silence. When you pass the baker's shop, what's left of it, a woman steps out from behind a barrel and presses something into your hand. It's a coin. Take him, she says. Her voice is barely more than a whisper. Her eyes never meet yours. You look past her. A man lies curled in a blanket beside the door. You're not sure if he's breathing, but she's sure. You nod. The cart rolls again. By dusk, your arms feel like wet rope. Your legs threaten to fold. But the cart keeps moving. One body becomes two. Two becomes four. By nightfall, you've dumped more strangers into the earth than you've spoken to this entire week. You sit on the steps of the chapel, hands stained, soul stretched thin. The man, your silent workmate, sits beside you and chews a raw onion like it's an apple. He offers you a bite. You decline. Cinders brushes against your foot. She didn't follow you to the pits, smart cat. She knows better than to hang around the end of things. The man finally speaks again. Only job left, he says. Dead don't complain. You want to say something. Anything. But what comes out is, I think I hate this place. He nods. Good, means you're not dead yet. You don't sleep that night, not really. You lie on the floor of the chapel, staring at the beams above, wondering if the pit ever fills, or if the earth just keeps swallowing. And you realize something awful. Even the dead are tired of dying. You can't sleep, not because of nightmares, though those are there too, but because of the sounds outside, moaning, crying, scratching. You tell yourself it's the wind, the rats, the echo of grief, but deep down you know the truth. It's the plague pits. They scream at night. At first you think it's your imagination, but then the woman hears it too. She sits bolt upright in the straw one night and says, "Did you hear that?" You nod slowly. She doesn't say anything else, just lays back down. But neither of you sleep again that night. You move the camp away from the chapel, too close to the edge of town, too close to the edge of whatever that is. You pitch a makeshift tent from abandoned sheets and broken cartwood. It's not warm, but at least it's quieter. Kind of. Because even now in this patch of weeds and dust the night is never silent. Dogs howl. Not regular barks, but long, low wails. You hear a child crying far off over and over again. And once, just once, you swear you hear your own name whispered by something with a voice too old to belong to anyone still breathing. Weird fact, there were medieval reports, honest-to-God records of plague ghosts. Spirits of the dead haunting towns where no one gave them a proper burial. People claim to hear voices at night from the mass graves calling for prayer or revenge. You try not to believe in that, but every night the sound comes again. The moaning, the scratching, the occasional thud. At first you think it's bodies shifting, settling, but one night you dig a little too deep into that thought. What if they weren't dead when you buried them? What if some were just too far gone to speak, too weak to move until the dirt hit their face? You try to stop imagining their last thoughts. You fail. You build a fire even though there's no real need. It makes you feel like something ancient, the kind of person who still believes fire keeps evil away. The woman watches you. You're jumpy, she says. You nod. Did you hear it again? You nod again. She doesn't laugh, doesn't joke, just throws another log on the flames. Don't let it in, she murmurs. You look at her. Let what in? But she doesn't answer. She's staring into the fire as if the flames might offer more comfort than any words. The next day you walk past the grave pit. You can't help it. It's like looking at a wound you know you shouldn't touch. The earth has shifted. A foot sticks out from the dirt. Just a foot. Pale, still, toes curled like they're waiting for shoes. You don't fix it. You don't touch it. You just keep walking. At night the sounds intensify. A scratching at the door, a thump at the wall. You fling it open once just to prove it's nothing. But there's no one there. Just the wind. And in the distance, the silhouette of a horse, or a man, or maybe a sack hanging from a tree. You blink, and it's gone. You tell yourself you're sleep-deprived, that it's all in your head. And then one morning you find the word "waken" scratched into the dirt outside your shelter. No footprints. Just that one word, like someone or something was trying to send a message. You don't talk about it, not to her, not to anyone. But that night you stacked chairs against the door. Historians still debate how much mental illness and spiritual panic were caused by the plague. Was it mass hysteria, hallucination, or something old or something we still don't have words for? You don't care what they decide. All you know is the dead don't rest. Not here. And as the wind howls through the trees and the fire sputters low, you whisper the only thing that still makes sense. I don't want to hear them anymore. But the pit doesn't care. It never did. You don't remember falling asleep, but you remember waking up. It hits you all at once, the sweat-soaked sheets, the dizziness, the ache behind your eyes. You sit up, and the world tilts. Cinders, stirs beside you, then promptly climbs onto your chest like a feline paperweight, making sure you don't float away. The fever's back. You groan. No words, just a sound from the bottom of your throat. Not again. Please, not again. You stumble outside into the gray morning, half expecting the woman to be gone. But she's there, sitting on a log, watching the road, sharpening a stick, not even a knife, just a stick. You sway in the doorway, trying to act normal. She glances at you. It's back. You nod. She sighs, but doesn't flinch. Doesn't run. Doesn't reach for her bow or light the shelter on fire, which honestly you wouldn't blame her for. Instead, she gestures to a corner. Bucket's full. Lay down when you're done vomiting. You like her. You spend the next day sweating, trembling, mumbling nonsense to ghosts only you can see. You call out names of people you didn't even know were still inside you. Neighbors, friends, someone named Thomas, though you never met a Thomas. The woman brings water, cold rags. She mutters things like, "You're not allowed to die again." That'd just be lazy. You appreciate that. Weird fact, some plague survivors did get it more than once. Whether because of new strains or because immunity didn't last, no one knows for sure. But in some rare, brutal cases, people lived through multiple waves. You apparently are one of those people. By the second day, your joints are on fire. You swear your bones are clicking like wooden dolls. You hallucinate that your skin is peeling off in strips that form new people, all of whom accuse you of things you didn't do. Cinders leaves your side once. Only once. She brings back a dead rat, a gift. You don't know if it's an omen or dinner. On the third day, you stop sweating. Not because you're healed, but because you're dry. Empty. Wrung out like old cloth. You can barely lift your head. The woman sits beside you, holding your hand. You don't remember her doing that the first time. She doesn't talk, doesn't hum. Just keeps a pulse on your wrist like she's anchoring you to the earth. You want to say thank you. What comes out is fish shoes. She nods. Sure, fish shoes. You drift again. You wake up that night to stars, real ones. You're outside now. She must have carried you, or maybe you crawled. The fire crackles. Cinders is purring like thunder. You realize slowly, painfully, you're breathing easier. You can smell pine and smoke and not death, not rot. You're alive. Again. But this time something's different. When you stand shaky, slow, you look around and everything feels lighter. Not in a joyful way. More like the world dropped something heavy it had been carrying. You survived a second round. And people know. When you finally return to the edge of town to scavenge, the stairs are worse than ever. People recoil. Not with fear, but with awe. Superstition has upgraded you from cursed to touched. Someone bows. You hate it. Another whispers, "He walks with death." You hate that more. A child tries to touch your coat for luck. His mother yanks him back like you're made of fire. You realize what's happening. You're no longer a person. You're a story. Historians say plague survivors were sometimes venerated, sometimes reviled. Either way, they were never normal again. The plague didn't just kill the body, it rewrote the living. You feel it now? Your skin is healed, but people look through you, around you. No one speaks your name. You wonder if they remember it. You wonder if you do. That night, the woman hands you a cup of something warm and bitter. "You're a ghost now," she says. You shrug. "Weren't we always?" She smiles. "Just barely. Now you've got company." You clink mugs, and for the first time in weeks, maybe months, maybe ever, you sleep without hearing the plague pit whisper your name. You're alive. You've survived the Black Death twice, and yet everything around you feels dead. The roads are empty. The fields are wild. The houses where families once fought over stew and shouted over goats now echo with nothing. You walk through the streets and see open doors swinging in the wind like mouths too tired to scream anymore. You're not just a plague survivor, you're a leftover. Everywhere you go, someone is missing. A mother, a friend, a child, a baker. And the people who are still here, they look at you like you're a walking reminder of who isn't. It's not hatred, it's worse distance. The woman, you've finally asked her name. It's Ansa. She shrugs when she says it like she hasn't used it in years. You've told her yours too, and for the first time in a long while, someone says it back. You spend your days tending gardens you didn't plant and repairing homes no one will return to. Cinders patrols the rooftops like a furry little warlord, keeping rats in check and occasionally dragging in prizes too questionable to celebrate. The town has changed. The few people left walk wide circles around each other. No handshakes, no shared meals, just nods. Silent acknowledgments of mutual survival. Like I see you followed by, "Please don't come any closer." Weird fact, in some plague-ravaged villages, survivors formed entirely new customs. Some towns replaced church bells with wooden rattles. Some banned funerals altogether. Some stopped speaking certain names, believing them cursed. You feel it too, the discomfort. You used to fear the dying. Now you fear the living. Ansa says little, but her presence is constant. She sharpens tools, patches roofs, sews clothes for no one in particular. "Maybe someone will wear them," she says. You both know she's really talking about herself. One evening, as you share a crust of bread and a wine bottle so old the cork crumbled, she asks, "What do you remember most before all this?" You think for a while. "Noise," you say. And it's true. What you miss isn't people or food or even laughter. It's the buzz of life, the chaos. Babies crying, pots clanking, farmers arguing about carrots. Now everything is quiet. Even the church bells are silent. That night you walk alone through the chapel ruins. A candle still flickers there, replaced daily by someone you've never seen. You sit in a pew that creaks like it hasn't held weight in years, and you try to pray. Not for anything, just to be heard, but you're not sure anyone's listening anymore. Historians still debate how deeply the plague rewired European society. Did it cause the rise of the modern age? Did it fracture faith permanently? Did it make people colder or just more practical? You know what it did. It left people standing in the middle of their lives, surrounded by ash and silence, not knowing how to move forward, because everything familiar had vanished. The next day, a man from another village arrives. He wears decent clothes, rides a skinny horse, and asks to trade for bread. Ansa eyes him carefully. "Got anything real?" He holds out a ring, gold, simple, smooth. "Wife died," he says. You trade. He leaves before nightfall, and you both stand at the gate long after he's gone. "It's starting," Ansa says. "What is?" She doesn't answer, but you know. The world is shifting. Survivors are finding survivors. Towns are trading again. Old customs are being quietly buried next to the dead, and something new, still awkward, still unsure, is being born. You're not sure if you belong in it. You've become something strange, a person who remembers too much in a town that would rather forget. But for now you keep living among the dying, or at least the echoes of them. And sometimes at sunset you hear laughter again. It's small, far away, but it's real, and that might be enough. The howling starts at dusk. You and Ansa are sitting outside sharing a roasted turnip in companionable silence. Well, sharing may be generous. You're watching her eat it while Cinders tries to steal it. Then the sound cuts across the sky. Not human, not quite animal, something in between. A long, mournful howl rising and falling like a broken whistle across the valley. You freeze. That's not a dog, you say. No answer replies calmly, chewing. Too long in the tooth. You try to laugh. It doesn't land. The next morning you find the tracks. Not human. Too big for a dog. Four-pawed. Clawed. Deep impressions in the soft dirt near the chicken coop well where a chicken coop used to be. It's been torn open like a paper parcel, and the chickens are gone. No feathers, just silence, and one small footstep beside the claw marks. You kneel to get a closer look. A child's bare foot, small heel, 5 toes, fresh. Someone was here with it, or worse, someone sent it. Weird fact, during the worst years of plague, wolves came down from the hills and wandered into abandoned towns. With so many corpses and so few people, they grew bold. In some regions, children formed feral packs. No joke. Accounts exist of wild orphans who howled, scavenged, and hunted like animals. That night, the howling returns. This time, it's closer. Ansa doesn't say anything, but she carries her knife with her even to the well. You set traps. Nothing fancy. Just nooses and pits and the kind of thing desperate people build when they're too tired to run. It doesn't work. 3 mornings later you find a trap snapped clean through and a child's rag torn and muddy draped over a tree branch like a flag. You recognize the fabric from a home on the far end of the valley. The little girl with the wild hair and the 2 small shoes. She's gone now. You don't talk about it. What's there to say? The wolves are taking the orphans. Doesn't feel like the kind of sentence that belongs to reality, and yet here you are. By midweek you start hearing rustling outside the shelter at night, scratching at the edges of the wooden slats. Once something taps on the window, deliberately, like it knows. Ansa doesn't sleep. Neither do you. Cinders stares at the door with her ears back and tail twitching. Then one night it speaks. You're not dreaming. You're wide awake, heart-hammering hand on your knife. And from outside the door comes a sound like a voice, but stretched, croaked, wrong. It says your name 3 times. You and Ansa sit frozen, not breathing, not blinking, then silence. It never returns. The next day you venture out. Find more tracks. Another torn rag, another house emptied. No wolves this time. Just the smell of old rot and the eerie sense that something has moved into the space where people once lived. You realize something new, something worse. You're not just living among the dying anymore. You're living among what comes after. The orphans, the wolves, the whispers. They've inherited the ruins. And they don't want you here. You need work. Not the survival kind, gathering, mending, fishing with frayed string and hopes. No, you need purpose, something to tether your mind before it drifts too far into the strange static of plague silence. So you try odd jobs. The first one isn't intentional. You're digging around the ruins of a collapsed house looking for salvageable nails, maybe a pan when you find it a hand. Not attached to anyone. Just the bones clean and curled, clutching a small pendant. It's beautiful. Bronze, delicately etched, maybe even Roman. You pull it from the bones and turn it over in your hand. Ansa peers over your shoulder. You know what that is. You shrug. A necklace? It's a business now. And just like that, you're in the corpse jewelry business. Odd fact. After mass deaths in plague years, it wasn't uncommon for survivors to recover valuables from the dead. Rings, brooches, coins, religious tokens. Some even turned them into trade goods. Dark, yes, but also practical. You clean the pendant, polish it. Next time a traveler passes through, you trade it for dried figs and a sewing kit. Word gets around. Soon people are quietly asking if you've come across anything valuable, and by come across they mean removed from the dead without asking. You don't advertise. But when someone leaves bread on your windowsill and whispers about a house that no one's entered yet, you understand. You start keeping 2 ledgers, one for useful trades, one for names people you found. Not because anyone asked, just because. Then comes the scribe work. Ansa brings you a book. Not a full book, just a stitched sheaf of blank parchment and a bundle of sharpened charcoal. She sets it down. You remember people, she says. Write them. So you do. You start scribbling names, descriptions, where they lived, what you remember, the man with the red boots, the baker who always oversalted, the twins who spoke in unison, not for glory, not for God, just so they're not gone. Historians still debate how many names were lost to the plague. In many towns, entire family lines disappeared without record. What you're doing isn't grand, but it feels right. A few people start coming to you. Not for food, not for medicine, for memories. Did you know my sister? What was she like? Was she afraid? You answer when you can. When you can't, you hold their hands, even if they flinch. You start writing letters, too. For people who can't spell anymore or never could. Mostly to the dead. My husband, I hope he found his parents. Tell my baby I sang to her. Forgive me. No one ever asks you to send them. They just want someone to write them down. Another job finds you next. A traveler leaves behind a bag of dried herbs with a note that simply says, "Luck charm corpse tested." You laugh, then you sell it for a bucket of nails. And just like that, you're also in the charm merchant business. You hang bits of copper on string, tie rosemary to bark, whisper nonsense as you wrap bundles in cloth. The townsfolk eat it up. This one protects against ghosts. This one guarantees your next fever breaks. This one makes rats ignore your bread. They pay in candles, buttons, eggs, gossip. Ansa raises an eyebrow. You believe in any of it? You shake your head. But they do, you say. And sometimes belief is worth more than truth. You keep working. Because the work keeps you anchored. Because ghosts don't visit busy people. Because naming the dead feels better than fearing them. One night you're writing a name, Marjorie, the old woman from your street, and you realize you don't remember the color of her eyes. You feel hollow. Ansa sees the look on your face. You can't carry them all, she says. I don't want to forget. You won't. You're not so sure. But the next morning, a girl drops a red scarf on your doorstep. You recognize it Marjorie's. She must have found it while scavenging, or stole it. Doesn't matter. You add a note beside the name in your book, red scarf. Smelled like cinnamon. The page feels whole again. You've buried the dead, named the forgotten, sold charms to the desperate, worn plague like a coat and grief like a second skin. You are not healed, but you are useful. And in a broken world, that's as close to living as you're going to get. You're in the town square, if it can still be called that. The fountain's dry. The stalls are collapsed. The statue of whoever it was, saint noble or bureaucrat, is missing a head. But there's a crowd, the biggest you've seen in months. Something's happening. You and Ansa keep to the edge, always. Shadows feel safer. A man on horseback rolls in, flanked by 2 soldiers with shiny boots and even shinier silence. His robe is clean, too clean. Gold trim, the way he holds himself like someone who's never carried firewood or dug a grave. A royal envoy. His voice is calm, cold, and utterly disinterested in whether anyone is listening. By decree of His Majesty, all landless survivors must submit to re-enrollment. That gets murmurs. He continues, "You will work the fields, rebuild roads, provide tribute. Those who refuse will be branded." Branded. Like cattle, Ansa mutters under her breath. So generous. He waits until we bury our own, and now he wants a tax. You nod slowly. The king's found out we're still alive. That's the mistake we made. Weird fact in the aftermath of the Black Death labor shortages rocked the feudal world. Suddenly peasants had power. Too few people meant desperate nobles. But when the survivors tried to negotiate wages or freedom, the state cracked down. In England, for example, the Ordinance of Laborers made it illegal for workers to ask for higher pay. Imagine surviving a pandemic and then being punished for surviving. A woman in the crowd raises her hand. What about food? The envoy smiles thinly. That will be handled. Another voice, and the sick. His smile fades. They will be noted. No one speaks after that. The branding comes next. A metal rod heated in a brazier shaped like a sun with 7 points. The mark of duty, he calls it. One man steps forward, thin, shaking, a child clinging to his leg. I need the food, he whispers. They mark him right above the collarbone. He screams. You flinch. Ansa grips your wrist. We leave now. You hesitate. We'll be hunted. Better that than owned. You nod. The two of you back away, slipping through the side streets like ash in the wind. Later that night, under the trees, you can still smell the branding iron, like burnt hair and wet iron. Ansa stares at the stars. He blamed us, she says quietly. Who? The king. All of them. They're blaming us. You think of how the envoy never once said thank you for surviving, never asked what happened, never wondered what it cost. Why would they blame us, you ask? She shrugs. Because if they don't, then they'd have to face what they let happen. You both fall silent. Even the crickets hold their breath. That night, you burn your old clothes, the ones you wore through the worst of it. You watch the flames devour them like pages from a book no one wants to read again. You are not the same person who walked out of the plague pits. You are not the same person who carried bodies, who wrote names, who was scratched on the door and called a witch, a miracle, a ghost. You are unclaimed, and the crown wants to own you now. Historians still debate whether the Black Death helped destroy feudalism. Maybe it did, but not in a day. Not in a speech. Change came like the plague did, quiet, slow, and only obvious once everything else had crumbled. As you fall asleep beside the fire, you whisper the names you wrote in your book, just to remind yourself what the world used to sound like. It begins with a cough, not yours, not Ansa's, someone else's. A stranger walking down the road with a limp and a bag over his shoulder. He stops by the well, dips a ladle, and coughs. Loud, wet, messy. You and Ansa freeze. You've heard this sound before. It's the kind of cough that comes from deep, from the lungs, from the belly, from that awful, hollow space between the ribs that always means something's wrong. Ansa leans in, not again. But you already know the answer. You ask the man where he came from. He says the South between coughs. A town with a name you don't recognize and that he doesn't pronounce clearly. He says there were fevers, black tongues, people dying in the streets. Again. He shrugs. But maybe it was something else. That's what everyone says at first. You offer him food anyway, because old habits die slower than people. By nightfall, 3 more people are coughing. You remember this pattern. A flicker of sickness, a tremble, a denial, then the full collapse. Ansa stares into the fire, stone-faced. We need to leave. Again. We always leave. You both start packing. Weird fact, the Black Death didn't come once. It came back. Again and again, regional flare-ups, mutated strains, sporadic outbreaks. Some were bubonic, some pneumonic, some septicemic. Historians still debate what version killed whom. Some towns faced the plague 3 times in a decade. You walk past your book, the one full of names, you hesitate. Take it, Ansa says. No one else will remember. So you pack the book. and cinders, and a knife, and the herbal charms you've been selling but never believed in. As you and Ansa pass through the gates of your second town, a child calls after you. "Are you coming back?" You don't answer, because you don't know. The road stretches ahead, lined with the ghosts of decisions you've already made. Behind you the coughs grow louder, but you don't look back. You sleep under a tree that night, the stars peeking between the leaves like old friends you haven't seen since the world ended. Ansa turns to you. You ever think it's never going to stop? You nod. Sometimes. Think it matters if it does. You don't answer, because some questions aren't for answering. They're just meant to be carried. In the morning, you find the corpse of a deer with black foam at its mouth. You both stare at it a long time. This new, you ask. Maybe not, Ansa says. Maybe it's just a version of old. You nod. You've been hearing that a lot. Even the survivors don't agree on what killed whom. Bubonic, pneumonic, septicemic, angry god, rotten air, rats. All you know is it's back, and it's changed. The fever moves faster now, or slower, or sideways. People bleed from their eyes or lungs or don't bleed at all. Some die within hours. Others linger for days screaming names no one else recognizes. You've seen it all, and none of it makes sense. Ansa says maybe it's not meant to. You don't argue, because in a world where even death is inconsistent, certainty is a luxury for kings and priests, neither of whom seem to have lasted long. You build a new fire that night, new camp, new soil. You start a fresh list of names. You begin with the deer, then the child by the well, then the woman who never woke up in the mill, just in case. Because even if they're not your people, they were people. And maybe one day someone will care that they existed, even if that someone is only you. The air smells different now. It's not rot, not sickness, not even smoke. It's something harder to describe, like dust and salt and endings. It smells like the world isn't dying anymore, but it's not really living either. You walk through the next town, what's left of it. Stone walls, empty carts, a dog too skinny to bark. Someone has drawn a symbol in ash on every door, not a cross, not a ward, just a circle broken on one side. You ask Ansa, what's it mean? She shrugs, don't know, but it's everywhere lately. You find a well, draw water, share a crust of bread you found wrapped in wax paper 2 villages back. It's stale enough to survive a siege, probably already did. Ansa sits down beside you. How long has it been? You think? Try to count? Fail? Since what? Since before. You don't answer, because time doesn't pass anymore. It loops, breathes, stops, starts again. Some days you wake to bird song and remember what it meant to feel hopeful. Other days the silence presses against your skull until you forget what language is for. The plague's over. That's what they say now. Historians later call it the end of the first wave. In letters, in books, in records no one reads until centuries later. They say things like life resumed and normalcy returned. But you know the truth. There's no going back. Not really. The buildings are still standing, the fields still grow, people barter, walk, even laugh, but it's quieter. Edges are sharper. Trust comes slower. People step wide around each other, not just in fear of disease, but in fear of memory. You're not the only one who survived, but you are one of the few who remembers it all. You walk through a market where vendors no longer shout. A man sells apples. A child plays with a stick in the dirt. Someone sings a lullaby without knowing the words. You hear someone say your name, not in reverence, just recognition. Is that him? You nod once, keep walking. You're not famous, you're not holy, you're just a reminder. A reminder that everything changed. You find a place on a hill, just above the town. You and Ansa camp there now. The view is nice, quiet, safe enough. Some nights you write, still naming, still recording, still remembering. Other nights you sit by the fire and whisper the things no one says aloud. Remember when we used to be afraid of taxes? Remember when the smell of bread meant food, not fire? Remember noise. Cinder still curls into your side, old now, slower, but still purring. One night you and Ansa watched the sunset burn down behind the hills. Everything gold and soft, everything too quiet. She says, I think we made it. You look around to what? She shrugs, whatever this is. You nod. You don't feel triumphant. You don't feel wise. You feel hollowed, like a cup someone drank from and forgot to refill. But you're still here, and that means something. Maybe not everything, but something. Summary, 300 words. And now, with the fire fading low and the world wrapped in that soft silver quiet that only comes when everyone else has gone to sleep, let's just sit here for a while. You've walked through disease and fire, hunger and fear. You've seen what it means to be a body, a shadow, a name nearly forgotten. You've survived not just the Black Death, but the strange, heavy silence that follows it. You've carried names, dug graves, sold fake charms, and wrote real stories. You found new people and lost old ones. You listened to the plague pit scream at night and never told anyone how often it called your name. And still, you're here, not the same, not untouched, but real. You see now that survival isn't always about beating something. Sometimes it's about learning to walk beside it, carrying it in your coat pocket, letting it whisper, and not always needing to answer. There's no grand finish to this, no fanfare, no medal, no loud declaration of victory. There's just you, breathing, sitting beside a fire, knowing that tomorrow might look a little more like living than surviving. And if not tomorrow, then maybe the next day. So let go of the lantern now. Let your thoughts settle like ash. Let the wind carry the stories forward, even the ones you haven't told yet. Because someone somewhere is still listening, even if that someone is only you. Good night. End of script. Good night.